Gegi. Thank you for joining us. We are discussing a topic that I have been waiting for quite some time. And I say this because I feel like I am such a work in progress, and the nature of the role that I play as a mom, and in my work as well in my professional life requires me to really understand how to evolve and to become first a better human. So I am so thrilled that I finally get to have this conversation with you to see how you approach this and what some of your suggestions, advice, recommendations could be for those of us who feel like we have a long way to go before we can understand what it actually means to be human. It's a topic I'm really fascinated about because when I look around me, I don't think, first of all, I don't think I can say I qualify as a good human because I still think there's a lot of work in me. But even if I look around me at the idols that society has put on a pedestal, I still don't think they're doing a good job being a good human. And I say this not out of spite or judgment. It's more to say that maybe we haven't sat down long enough to figure out what are the qualities that we want to raise and put on a pedestal when we say, oh, that is a great leader. I love Steve Jobs, for example. I love Steve Jobs. I love Elon Musk. I love Richard Branson. I love Nelson Mandela. I love all the leaders that we've kind of we've sensationalized their activities, the contributions they've made, how they've impacted society in different ways. I think there is always good in everyone, whether we consider them famous and accomplished or, like the baker that I normally go and buy bread from. I still think that there's greatness in that person as well. But I also think that what makes us remember someone as great, like if we talk about Steve Jobs, for example, or even if we look at the leaders that are currently trending and, having millions of followers like the Kardashians, I think we are still missing the mark on why we're calling them great, or why we're saying that they should be considered as great leaders. To me, I think what made someone like Nelson Mandela very special is not necessarily that he was strong, that he had fortitude and courage and all the wonderful things that he did. I think it was more because he really held on to his humanity against a lot of trials and tribulations. But somehow that's not the thing that is praised in the history books. It's something else. And so I would love to hear from you when it comes to being a better human. I know you advocate so much that being a good leader has a lot to do with being a good human first. So I really want to understand, what do you mean when you say being a good human first? Because I'm still trying to answer that question.
Yeah. Let me start off to answer this huge question with a very practical, simple approach, which leads the listener, our dear audience, to reflect and to answer from within. Here is the challenging question for everybody in this session. When last have you been in the bathroom facing the mirror and seeing your best friend in front of you? Meaning for you, Jeanette, that is Jeanette, that's your best friend, because she is the only human being who is with you along your whole path from start to end. And for me, it's the same. So, here's the question. When you watch in the eyes of your best friend, what is it you see in the first millisecond? Please do not answer. This would be indiscreet. I know it from thousands, 10,000s of experiences. Most human beings see a negative aspect. They see something in the first millisecond which they do not like. Now, how? Next question. How do you treat your best friend if the first thing that you see appears as to be negative, not likable? So, this is where it starts, the whole big thing in your question, dear Jeanette. Now, the answer to this is this very simple saying with such big meaning behind. You have heard me say, Jeanette, goodbye, see you soon, and remember, be good to yourself. It's just a simple saying. Be good to yourself. What does that mean? That answers the question if we follow really through. By start seeing positive things in, at, around your best friend that you face in the mirror. And therefore, look, the world around us can only see in us the things that we apply in the way we treat ourselves. And if we treat ourselves like this, because we criticize all the time our being, we are actually searching for negative feedback from our surrounding in the relationship, family, team members, etc. Look, we are treated the way we see ourselves. Parenthesis, in the mirror. So, how would you want to be treated as a human being? That is the key question. I remember in New Mexico, there was, her name was Mrs. Fernandez. And when I asked her in a process of personal development for leaders, how are you treated by people in your company? She was responsible at that time in this commercial firm for the cleaning of the offices, etc. And her answer basically was, when I asked her, after everything you have explained, does that give you a picture of how they treat you? She says, Cinderella. I say, okay. In other words, when you see your best friend in the bathroom, in the mirror, you see something alike Cinderella, yes? She said, yes, absolutely. So then I go, so how would you want this to change? Do you see that people treat you the way you see yourself? Because you project this out there. And then gradually we reached her vision. What would you like to see when you watch the movie on your mental screen? Because if you have watched for the last 20 years Cinderella, by the time now you know it. It's a reflex. So, what other movie would you prefer to see? This took her quite some time. I remember the moment when she came back and said, before she even started, I could see the spark in her eyes. Oh, Mrs. Fernandez, she got it. The name of the movie was so-and-so, her first name, Fernandez, the cleaning queen. Okay, wow, what a contrast. And from that moment on, the way she was treated has changed beautifully. And 2 years later, she was promoted. The company with the new CEO went even better. They expanded, and she got a team member. So now she has become the cleaning queen. So now let us get back. I mean, this is such a key topic again from you. Thank you very much. Being more human first means be good to yourself. And with this short story about Mrs. Fernandez, that tells us probably the main lessons already. And then when we start to put this whole thing into a pure business context, here is a wonderful thing. When we talk about bottom line in a corporation, shareholder value and all of that, have we ever become aware that a happy bottom line requests a happy top line? Bottom line is the numbers, and top line is the people. So, how do we ensure that our top line is top? On the level of being more human first. This has enormous implications, positive implications on the bottom line. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And I absolutely loved Mrs. Fernandez's story because one, I love Cinderella. It's not even a secret. I absolutely love Cinderella. That is one of my favorite stories. I think that a lot of women miss one of the key elements that you were able to help Mrs. Fernandez get from the Cinderella story, because even when we start off as Cinderella, if you have read the story properly, Cinderella went from being, the invisible poor girl who was just a nobody to the moment she got that transformation. She didn't have to wear a mask to that ball, but nobody recognized her.
Yes.
To me, I think that's a key shift that so many little girls and women who read that story miss, because we fail. And if you miss that, then you get trapped in old version Cinderella instead of the real transformed Cinderella. But that shift happened inside of her. The fairy godmother did not change her physically. She just gave her some accessories and the opportunity to get to the ball. But it's because something in her changed, where she stopped playing that old story that, oh, poor me, I'm the one who never gets any opportunity and I'm just a nobody, to feeling like the princess that she emerged into. And because she changed that aspect of her, like you were saying, she changed the girl that she was looking at in the mirror, and no one could recognize her. She was like a completely different woman. Her own stepsisters and her stepmom did not see who she was, even though she didn't have a mask on, So I absolutely love that you were able to help Mrs. Fernandez go from old Cinderella to being the queen, because I do think that is the key thing. And I feel like a lot of women are held back because they haven't hung out with you yet. so the shift hasn't happened. They're still stuck in Cinderella. And even if they have the opportunity to step into the moment and create something, there is that's holding them back, which is exactly what you said. Is, if I look in the mirror, what story am I telling myself, and who am I seeing? Because if I'm still seeing that poor girl Cinderella, then it really don't matter where I go. Everyone is still just gonna see that, because that's what's inside me. I thought that was so powerful. I feel like I'm going to coach you so much just from this particular conversation. But I'm getting it now. if I want to be the best leader that I can become, I have to keep working more on being more human and understanding what that is.
Yes, and for all the men in our audience today, you
Yeah,
know
today.
what, gentlemen, this is as well valid for all men. Just that it's then not the face of Cinderella versus
Yeah.
the cleaning queen. It's a little different, you know,
Right.
and it applies as well. The principle of
But
being good to yourself.
do you think men have an easier time being good to themselves than women?
Again,
Do you think men have an easier time seeing themselves in a positive light? Or do you think it works both ways? There's no bias here.
okay. The difference is that men tend to make it up.
Oh, yes, I love it. We have this on record. Okay, so we all have a lot of work to do. Maybe guys put on the persona better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. I think this has been one of the best conversations we've ever had. I loved the stories. Please bring us more stories, Mrs. Fernandez and everyone else that you have. I really appreciate the nuggets that you've given us today. Sometimes it's good to talk about the principles of what it takes to be a good leader, but I think the subtleties of everyday being human, I think is also often overlooked and is just as beneficial, especially like you said, to the bottom line of a company. We never think about these things when we think about numbers. So thank you, Heinz.
Thank you very much for this outstanding question.
Thank you. See you next time. Have a good one.
See you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.